Hello, Commanders, and welcome back to Elite Dangerous Journey Across the Galaxy. Today's topic of discussion is going to be the various control setups available for Elite Dangerous. But before we get into that, let's go ahead, get off the ground, and welcome all of you who are just joining us for this journey. If you're not a continual follower of the series, we are currently working on our exobiology skill, as well as trying to save up money for a fleet carrier. To do that, we're making our way out to Beagle Point, because there's a lot of places to stop along the way. So yeah, that's what we're doing. We've left the bubble, already made all of our way through the center of the galaxy. I'll bring up the galaxy map once we hop into the next system. I didn't want to have to restart my frame shift drive, but that's just the way that's going to go. The cycle of operations, for those of you who are new, is typically we hop into the system. As you see here, we'll pop our discovery scanner to see how many bodies are in the system. We'll do that here in a second. Then once we do that, we'll finish up with our fuel scooping. So let's go ahead and get that done. It's only 2 bodies in this system, so we'll go ahead and just move on to the next one. But typically we would hop into our full spectrum system scanner, and then we will try to see if there are any high value planets, Earth-like worlds, water worlds, and ammonia worlds. And if there are 15-ish or less bodies in the system, we'll go ahead and do a full-on scan looking for biological sources. I want to make sure that those of you who are new are able to see that we did start way over here in the bubble. We got all the way through the center of the galaxy. We visited Sagittarius A star, the supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy. We're right here at the moment, and we're making our way off in that direction. So let's go ahead and get off to the next one. As I said, the topic of discussion for today is going to be the various control options available for Elite Dangerous. I had a discussion in the comments with somebody asking me for recommendations as far as equipment and things like that. So I'm going to go through and discuss some of the relatively few options that I'm aware of, and then, you know, with the huge caveat that your control scheme is highly personal, and what works for one person does not work for another person. So just keep in mind, I'm going to be presenting options here. I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are on each of them, but ultimately it's up to you. So obviously the simplest version and the most accessible, or the simplest option and most accessible option, is going to be the mouse and keyboard setup. Everybody has a mouse and a keyboard with their computer, assuming you're on PC. Well, I guess everybody would be on PC now. I believe they discontinued support for the console version of the game, so that kind of sucks. You're going to be, single biology there. We're looking for at least 2. You look up in the top right of the screen. Ooh. Someone was telling me that if you find a biological and a geological source on the same planet, sometimes you can get better rares, but I still don't want to fly over there for just one. Oh, that's unfortunate. A couple of these are behind the planets, or are behind the star, so we're going to have to fly perpendicular to the plane of the solar system here and try to get where we're not obscured there. So obviously the mouse and keyboard is going to be the most accessible option. I would say it's, depending on what you're, it's so cool to look at the Milky Way here. Depending on what you're doing, it can also be the easiest to use. For example, right now I'm currently just using mouse and keyboard because I don't really need the precision that you get with some kind. Ooh, okay, we're gonna go scan that planet. It had 2 biological sources on it. Both of these had biological sources on it. All right, well, I guess we're not going anywhere today. Trying to get some distance down, but we got lucky with the things there. Sorry if you're just joining the channel, this is how it goes. I'm easily distracted when things happen, and I end up starting and stopping. You're just gonna have to live with it. The mouse and the keyboard are the most accessible because everybody has one. It can be really easy to use if you can come up with a control scheme that works for you and is natural and you can remember it. I would never recommend it for anything that requires high precision flying, such as combat or like asteroid mining or things like that. You can do it. I personally use just my keyboard for flying around, so I have WASD and Q and E for my orientation control. WS forward and back, or pitched up, pitched down. A and D yaw left and yaw right, and then Q and E roll left and roll right. And then I have frame shift drive on my F key, super cruise on my R key, because those are easily right next to each other. Spacebar is my primary fire, shift is my secondary fire. That allows me to do my discovery scanner, and then if I have something where I need a secondary fire that doesn't involve the mouse, I have it available there. And I have it set up that way so that, because right now in Super Cruise, I'm able to just fly around with my left hand. I don't have to do anything. My right hand can just be sitting on my lap. That's all I got to do with it. Okay, so we're going to do that. 2, 3, 4, 5. And so if you look down at the bottom right, there's an efficiency target there. If you can fire that many probes or less, you get extra money for being efficient with your probes. I'm not sure what the role-playing justification is for that, but, you know, it's extra money in your pocket if you can do it. Ooh, Stratum. I think both of these planets are probably going to have, because usually when we have just Bacterium and Stratum, typically tends to have the Stratum Tectonicus, which is 90 million credits if you can get first footfall at the same time. So as I was saying, and actually this is good timing because we're about to go down to the planet and we're going to be doing a bunch of, when I do use my right hand on the keyboard, it is for when we're in situations where we're going to have to thrust around. So I use the numpad on my right hand. 8 and 5 are my thrust forward, thrust backwards. 4 and 6 are my thrust left and my thrust right. And then I do have the numpad 0 and the numpad enter key as my up and down options. So that's how I do that. And then, you know, you can pop your other keybinds around the keyboard however you want. Pretty much the only time I use my mouse in this mode is when I need to do the full spectrum system scan or the planetary scans, because obviously it's easier to do that with the mouse. You can do it with just the keyboard, but it's much easier to do with the mouse. So I would only really recommend the keyboard for when you're doing stuff like this. If you're just flying around doing like cargo runs, or you're flying around in situations where you don't have to have super precise control of your movement, and you're flying around mostly like a jet, I guess, you know, the keyboard is perfectly fine for that. The way they implemented it in this game is very natural and intuitive, and it's not really something you have to mess with too much. I also have throttle set to 25% increments, and those are set to the X and Z keys so that I can quickly move my throttle up and down with my left hand as well. Okay, so we're gonna get down here. Let's get our landing gear. I have my landing gear bound to the numpad delete or period key. So let's see if we can find. I think these are the stratum right here. Get landed. Find a spot to land. There we go. Well, we had a spot. There we go. All right. So that's, you know, personally, it's great to have controls and everything, but there's something really comfortable, like ergonomically, about just using the mouse and keyboard. You can kind of lean back in your chair when you're just doing a bunch of Super Cruise stuff, and you don't have to you know, have yourself all set up with controls and everything. And especially if you're like me and you don't have a lot of room, yes, that's 90 million credits right there, my friends. If you're like me and you don't have a ton of room to just have like a, what's it called, a cockpit setup or whatever, where you just always have it set up, you're constantly having to, you know, put your joystick, set up your joystick, set up all that stuff, and it's just, it can be a real pain to just have to deal with that. So the convenience of the keyboard and a mouse, if you like to fly with the mouse, is very hard to ignore for certain people. If you have plenty of space and you can just leave all that stuff set up and it's not an issue for you, well, then obviously that doesn't apply. But for me, it's nice to be able to just not have to have anything extra on my desk. I don't have to set anything up. I don't have to move anything. It just makes it very nice to deal with. Now, obviously, in many situations, the mouse and keyboard are much less than optimal, specifically when you're doing combat. So for me, when I'm doing combat, I do a hand-on throttle, or a hand-on stick and stick. So I have two Extreme 3D Pro from Logitech. I have those, when I do combat, I generally run with those. And I will have the right stick set up for my orientation. It's kind of backwards for my keyboard setup, but because for whatever reason that just, I don't know, for whatever reason it's just, let me see. How do I explain? Well, I don't know. There's a couple of different ways I've gone. The reason I have the orientation set up on my left hand for my keyboard is because it allows me to have all of my standard keys set around for the one-handed use. That's why. It allows me to look around and do everything with my left hand, and I don't have to, you know, split my hand up across the keyboard to do multiple different things, or have it on the mouse, or have it on a bunch of other things. I can just have everything on one hand, and then, you know, it makes it super easy. But when I'm using joysticks, my brain just will not reverse that. I have to have it where the pitch is, because, you know, I did flight sims a lot. There's a physical memory that you have in your body when you've done something for a lot. And for me, we did have some bacteria right here. We'll grab the bacteria here. Then we need to go to that other planet, because that's going to be a lot of money if it's the same thing, and it's probably going to be. There's a physical memory, and my right hand, when it's used in like a flight stick orientation, is always going to be associated with pitch and roll. So I can't, as weird as it sounds, I kind of go. We landed right on top of it. I kind of flip-flop back and forth with the different hands doing different things depending on the application that I'm using. So for my left hand, or for the keyboard, my left hand controls pitch. In a stick situation, my right hand is controlling the pitch. I have found that for when I want a purely full-on, analog setup for my flying around, specifically for when you're doing a lot of combat and everything like that, I personally find the two sticks solution to be the most intuitive and easiest to use. That's me personally. What I typically do is I'll have the right stick set up for orientation, so forward and backwards for pitch, left and right for roll, and then twist twist for the left and for yawing left and right. Can we get the thing here? This will be number 2. You can tell because the little progress bar on the canister will now be 2/3 full. There you go. And we go find another one. And then I'll have my left hand set up for thrust, so forward and backwards for forward and backwards thrust, left and right for left and right thrust, and then I'll use the twist axis for my up and down thrust, my vertical thrust. So we don't want to go into crater, because let's see, this should be far enough away. So we'll grab these, and then we'll get out of here and go to the other planet, and hopefully be finding another 90 million credits on the other planet. And then obviously you can set up your controls however you want. There is a hybrid version that I do sometimes when I don't feel like having to have the 2 joysticks on the thing. I'll kind of do a. Did we finish? Yeah, we gotta wait for that. I'll kind of do a like an old school. I call it my joystick Doom setup. So in the old days, when mouse and keyboard was first becoming a thing, when WASD was first becoming a thing, I guess it's not even really the old days. You know how you have WASD as your moving around key? Well, rather than using a mouse as the looking around option, I use my joystick. So I'll have my joystick in my right hand controlling pitch, and then I'll use WASD, and then I'll have spacebar and shift for my up and down rather than numpad and enter. I know it's a lot of switching around, and for those of you who don't know what the hell I'm talking about, it's probably very confusing. But at any rate, a dual stick setup for me is the most intuitive. That's what I prefer to go with if I'm looking for high precision. So I'll alternate back and forth between a dual stick setup when I'm doing high precision stuff, and then I'll do just keyboard when we're doing stuff like this, because it's just very convenient to do. So that's kind of the extreme ends of the spectrum as far as I'm concerned. Now we can talk about hand-on throttle and stick. So obviously using a traditional stick and throttle setup, which is, kind of what the ship here has. If you look down, there's a stick on the right side and a throttle on the left side. I'm not really sure. Well, we need to find the other. Where's our other? Is it this one? Yeah. Oh. Sorry, I'm trying to target the next biological planet. Get that out of the way. And of course, it's around the other side. So let's get flipped around and we'll head over there. I know a lot of people really like to do have a throttle, a stick and throttle setup, which is, that's totally fine. Me personally, I've never found a very intuitive way to make that work. I'm struggling a little bit to get away from this planet and have my... There we go, Super Cruise Assist work. We need to hurry up and get over to this planet so we can do it. There are ways you can set it up so that you can have the throttle control your forward and backwards motion, and then maybe you could have like some hat switches or something controlling your thrust, which, you know, would work. But the problem with most throttles is that there's no center detent. So you're going to have a hard time feeling for that forward backwards motion. So you either need to have it set up so that your throttle is only forward thrust, and then maybe you have your hat switches set up in such a way that allows you to control forward, backwards, up and down, left and right. Or you have to come up with some other solution. I know some people use rudder pedals, which opens up a degree of axis on your throttle. So you could use hat switches for, say, up and down, forward and backwards, and then you could use the rudder pedals, and then obviously the toe brakes on the rudder pedals as well. You could use those as maybe like roll or something like that. I don't know. I don't know why you would want to do that. Me personally, that just... Oh, I didn't mean to do that.
Surface scanned by 50%.
That was stupid.
Surface scan complete.
Well, at least we got our efficiency target bonus before that happened. Okay, we got our stratum there. Let's get our Super Cruise Assist turned off. And then, are we in... All right, I just want to make sure we're on the light side here. Okay, so I need to focus on this for a second, then we'll get back to the discussion on flight controls. Let's see, what's the... And I guess that's probably good. 12 o'clock position, there seems to be a lot of light, or a lot of flat looking area there.
Orbital flight engaged.
All right. So, me personally, I've never been a big fan of the stick and throttle version of doing things. It's just, it doesn't... Obviously, different sticks are going to have different control options on it, so if you find one, it's going to really depend. That setup is really going to depend on how you like to do it. For my Extreme 3D Pros that I use for my dual joystick setup, I can use one of the throttles on those joysticks for my forward throttle, and then I can just have full three directions of control on my left hand for thrust. And it just feels more natural to me. Okay, let's get down to the ground. But I mean, you can, if you've watched me for any length of time, the last, I don't even know how many episodes have all been just with the keyboard. And I get around just fine. Get our landing gear down.
Landing gear deployed.
We'll just go forward and grab these here. I can't think of any other kind of control setups off the top of my head. Those are really the big major ones. Do you need rudder pedals? Absolutely not. That was a specific question that was asked of me, especially when it comes to this game. Even when I'm playing, say, DCS or Flight Simulator or any of that stuff, you use the rudder, unless you're doing some serious combat maneuvers, you're not using your rudder pedals hardly at all. Maybe 5% of the time, and you know that's only if you're doing like dogfighting stuff. Are you going to use it any more than just for takeoff and landing? Pretty much. So you know, if money's not an object, sure, go ahead and invest in a set of pedals just because you want the realism of it, or you want to have the option. But if you're kind of trying to decide, do I want to buy this or do I not want to buy this because, it's going to enhance my gameplay? Even in hardcore flight sims, only for realism. It really functionally has very little difference unless you can get, unless you're doing some serious dogfighting that requires, hard yaw rates and things like that while you're turning and pirouetting and stuff like that. In a space sim like this that is not designed for a craft that flies in a straight, it has only one source of thrust, I find rudder pedals to be completely unintuitive and not useful. I would much rather have a two-handed setup rather than sticks, or rather than I'm sorry, two-handed setup rather than something that uses my feet. Okay, hold on. I was about to say we had a landing spot right here. Uh-oh, what's going on here? I think we might have a bug. Or maybe we landed in a spot where we can't. The only thing I can think of is maybe there was. Nope. There is some kind of problem going on, so I'll be right back when I'm going to exit the game and come back. Okay, we seem to have resolved it by logging out and logging back in. Or I didn't even have to log out. I just returned back to the main menu. I wish we had decided to do that while we were sitting closer. That would have been much faster. So anyways, you know, those are the control schemes that I'm aware of. Let me know in the comments if you can think of any more. Maybe I'll spit out some opinions about them. But obviously, I can only spit out spit out decent opinions about things I've actually used. So any of the other things like that, I don't know. I'm probably not gonna have a good perspective on it. But like I said, for convenient, 99% of the time for the things that I do, I'm just running around at a keyboard. You don't need anything more than that to have a really good time at the game. Unless you're doing combat, you're gonna have a really hard time, you know, enjoying combat doing just a keyboard. But for just, I mean, even if you don't have like docking assist and things like that, you see how I'm flying around with relative precision with the keyboard. It may not look like the most natural thing in the world, but it works. I don't recall having seen any bacteria. The bacteria on this planet is much darker. Okay, I think I saw some back over here. Thought I saw some. I did. Yeah, the bacteria on this planet is very gray, so.
Landing gear retracted. Landing gear deployed.
Okay, we got stuck on some rocks there. Our landing gear got stuck. Not the best thing in the world. Grab these last couple of pieces of bacteria here. Let's say, where are they? It's so closely colored to the rest to what the rest of this planet looks like that it's hard to tell. Okay, that's one. We just need 2 more of those. Hopefully they'll be easy to spot. Lots of stratum tectonicus here. I saw some bacteria, but maybe not. Being distracted by this van that's just kind of driving around weirdly outside. Where is the bacteria? Alright, well this is one of those situations where it's going to take us more time to find this stuff than I really want to spend, so let's go ahead and land. We'll get out of here and call it a day. Hopefully you guys have been having lots of fun Be sure to click that like button if you have, so that the YouTube algorithm will know and send the video out to as many people as possible. If you're not subscribed, please consider doing so now, so that when the next video comes out, it will show up in your video feed and you will be able to watch it as soon as it becomes available. Channel members do get early access to all of my content, so be sure to click that join button, check out the list of options available there, and decide if any of those are right for you. If you are not interested in a continuing commitment but would still like to support the channel, there is that thanks button for a one-time tip, so be sure to press that if you got something out of this video and, you know, feel like contributing. Direct support is greatly appreciated and a critical component to helping to turn this into a full-time gig, which is the dream. That is a beautiful shot of the Milky Way, and this is from the other side as seen from the Earth. Anyways, hopefully you guys have been enjoying the journey. Be sure to come back for the next one, and I'll see you then.